Okay, so let's now dig in more detail to the security clearance fiasco. I referenced it before the interview with Alexander Natipov. Now let's dig into it in more detail. I've already reminded you that Jared Kushner's security clearance is very, very suspicious. He lied on his initial security clearance application forms. The decision was made that he shouldn't have a security clearance. Reportedly, Donald Trump got involved. Unclear who said what and to whom, concerns about Jared Kushner being in the pocket of Qatar and Saudi Arabia, but ultimately Jared Kushner ends up with a security clearance. Let's now focus in on Ivanka Trump. The questions about Ivanka Trump include, is she going to be pulled into any of the probes that are now going on? Has she been involved, either directly or indirectly, implicitly or explicitly, in the criminality of the Trump family? We don't know. But three sources familiar with the matter are now telling CNN that Donald Trump specifically pressured his then chief of staff, John Kelly, as well as White House attorney Don McGahn, to give Ivanka Trump a security clearance after the recommendation was made that she not get one. Let me remind you, just last week, Ivanka Trump claimed that Donald Trump had no role in her getting a clearance. Now, before I show you the clip, if you believed her last week, I have a bridge to sell you. It wasn't believable when she said it, but she did say it. Here's a reminder.
There are a lot of investigations going on, as you know. Democrats launching new ones this week. One of them into the clearance process, something that you and your husband now have, security clearances, but there were some issues early on. And there are a lot of people that question whether you were given special treatment by the president, overriding other officials. Can you speak to that?
There were anonymous leaks about there being issues, but the president had no involvement pertaining to my clearance or my husband's clearance. Zero.
What were the problems early on?
There weren't any, other than a backlog that exists of close to 1 million clearances across government. This isn't new.
Very clearly says Donald Trump had no involvement. Directly contradicted now, like half of what these people say, by three sources familiar with the matter. So let's list the concerns. First of all, the White House is lying. They are all lying all the time. They can't be believed. Polls confirm this. More Americans believe convicted felon Michael Cohen over Donald Trump by a 50-35 margin, according to the new Quinnipiac poll that we talked about earlier today. This is just part of the constant lying that the Trump administration and his family is engaged in. Number two, these are not political games, okay? These are unelected individuals like Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner. They are not subject to Senate confirmation because they are just advising and working for their father in a role that has skirted anti-nepotism laws and Senate confirmation. They were determined not to qualify for security clearances, and they got those security clearances anyway. This is a national security risk, period. There's not any other way that you can couch this. If you are for national security being a priority, if you're for law and order, if you're for keeping the country safe, which Republicans claim to be, you have to be against this. There's no other way to explain it. But it's actually even worse than that, because as House Democrats have been learning about the sketchiness around Ivanka and Jared Kushner's security clearances, they've started to requisition documents. They've requested documents from the White House actually more than once at this point, and the White House is straight up refusing to provide them. So John Kelly needs to be called before Congress to testify. Don McGahn needs to be called before Congress to testify. But Ivanka and Jared also need to, because the criminality must be stopped. The lying must be stopped. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean that it will. But these are not political games, right? This is not, oh, how much do we want to keep talking about the crowd size at Donald Trump's inauguration? This is a very, very different thing. Security clearances are serious business. There's a process in place to determine who should and shouldn't have them. And the idea that unelected individuals who were never subject to Senate confirmation shouldn't have security clearances and should make anybody who's concerned about national security absolutely and totally horrified. And unfortunately, the easiest path towards getting all of these people out of positions of power is not going to come at the result of an investigation. It's not going to come as a result of impeachment. We're only 20 months from the election. They can all be voted out in 20 months. And at this point, that is the quickest and most direct path to making that a reality. And I'm going to keep mentioning that as we get one day at a time closer to the 2020 election.